What are the best heroes in Deadlock right now? Whether you want to climb, win more, just have more fun playing OP heroes, which ones should you play? Today we're going to go over my recent tier list, as well as showing you a bunch of resources, including recommended builds per heroes, my personal opinions on some of these things, and why some of the heroes that are really strong right now are really strong. Of course, it's just my opinion. Now, since I hate clickbait and I hate kind of content farming, I'm going to give you guys the tier list right here, and the link is in the description, and it's a interactive tier list. What that means is that if I change anything, I can change anything at any time and it'll be reflected automatically. It's in a website format, so I think it's a great resource. And if you click on a hero, you can see the specific builds that are recommended for them. Now, we recently implemented a kind of like build voting feature so that people could say whether they liked the build or not. Now, keep in mind that this does not necessarily represent how good the build actually is. If I put the build there, it is a good build, but it can reflect the popularity of certain creators, so it does not reflect the quality of the build. I just want to make that clear. When it comes to the tier list, this is updated pretty much whenever I feel like it, but I try to update it roughly every week or every 2 weeks, whether there's new builds that come up, whether I think there's something in the tier list has changed, I'll update it. So you can kind of always, have this link, bookmark it, and then whenever a new update comes out, you can just check it out rather than have to watch a 30-minute video where I explain my takes on every hero. You can just click on a hero, very quickly see the position, and it's meant to be, user friendly. It's made by the community for the community. So thank you guys for your support, and this allows me to make resources like this for you. Getting into the tier list and which heroes I think are the strongest, I know people disagree on tiers. I have S+ tier and then S tier. Now, realistically, whatever you call the tiers doesn't matter. It could have been S tier and then A tier, but I don't really, I think that when people see like a very low tier, like for example, D tier, they instantly think that the hero's bad. And I want to make one thing clear is that I don't really think any hero in Deadlock is unplayable right now. I don't think any of them are really that bad. And of course, some builds might be really bad, but there's always like an optimal way to play the hero that I think is pretty decent, or at the very least playable. An example of that would be Bebop. Like I recently saw a Reddit post talking about Bebop having a 42% win rate or something like that. And a lot of Bebops, especially in lower ranks, are playing Bomb Bebop, which is extremely easily countered by debuff remover, counterspell, and all these other things. And of course, it's not going to have a great win rate. Also, as you guys may notice, I am wearing a turtleneck because someone in a previous video said, "Hey, Deathy, I think a turtleneck would look great on you." And I said, "I'll wear one for you next time." And if you guys ever have any comments or any funny stuff, sometimes I try to read as many comments as I can. So, leave a comment below if you want me to do anything different in future videos. Now, in the first S+ tier, I have Billy, Infernus, and Vindicta. Now, starting with Billy, I think that Billy's really strong right now for a few reasons. I think that the hero benefited from a lot of the system changes. I think he has great damage output from a weapon damage perspective. He's very, very tanky. He can benefit from all three categories in the 4.8k investment, right? Like he needs a little bit of weapon, a little bit of vitality, a little bit of spirit with spirit snatch and items like that. So he very heavily benefits from all the categories. And one big change that a lot of people are not talking about with Billy is that Billy can farm for free, basically. So with his passive, Blasted, well, it's kind of a passive, but when he activates Blasted, he's one of the only heroes in the game that can actually farm Sinner Sacrifices without losing health. The Sinner Sacrifices hurt a lot nowadays. You lose hundreds of health for farming them. And so being able to farm those without actually losing much health is a massive, massive boon for Billy. He farms at an incredible pace. He has great team fight. His ultimate has always been good. All of his abilities are good. And he really did not need a buff, but he got one regardless. And so, make of that what you will. I think that explains the S+ tier. The second hero in S+ tier is Infernus. At first, I actually put him S tier and I changed it. I think that Infernus is just absurdly strong at all stages of the game, and even I underestimated him a little bit. Even if you counter buy him, even if you buy debuff remover, even if you hide around corners, even if you double jump out of flame dash, it kind of feels like there's really not much to be done against this hero. This hero's kit just kind of has everything, but I don't think his kit is inherently unbalanced. I think it can be balanced. Right now, I think the most broken part of his kit is just Afterburn and the scaling on it. Now, I know a lot of people think Afterburn shouldn't be refreshed with one bullet, and I would be open to the developers trying different ways of Afterburn being refreshed, whether one bullet just extends the duration a little bit rather than fully refreshing the effect, or other solutions. But for the time being, Infernus is just really, really strong, especially with the early spike. Once he gets 4.8k in spirit, Afterburn just chunks you, and very often he gets duration extender, and so it just lasts forever. And so you just get Afterburn and you just need to hide for basically a really, really long time, and it feels really hard to play against against this hero. Now, in my third S plus tier, I have Vindicta. Vindicta, I think, benefited from the 4.8k spirit spike almost better than every other hero in the game. You can do like 400 plus damage with snipe right at 4.8k souls, which is, you know, way more than half of a player's health. So they need to be below 50% though. But yeah, you can basically one-shot players once they're below 50% very early in the game, and this hero feels incredibly powerful. Now combine that with the utility of Crow and Stake, and you've got a hero that can generate a lot of momentum, that wins lanes. And yes, the hero can be shut down in pro play, and that's why you don't see her picked as early. But even in pro play, she's really strong. She's probably just more like of an S tier. But this tier list is based on matchmaking, and it's based on my experience and perspective as an Infernus 6 player. Essentially, Vindicta just has a ton of momentum. Yes, she can be shut down, but her damage output is very, very, very high. And I think that if she wins a lane and starts rotating, it feels really, really hard to deal with. Now, I'm not going to go over every hero that I have in this tier list, but I want to talk about a couple S tier heroes that changed since last patch, or some heroes that just got like, you know, big, kind of like went up a lot in the tier list. And I would say out of these heroes, Abrams is, you know, was always kind of solid, but Abrams really benefits a lot from this patch. He actually deals like a lot of weapon damage now. On top of that, he benefits heavily from the 4.8k vitality investment. And I would say that we are a little bit in a bruiser meta, so to speak, in the sense that a lot of the tanky heroes are fairly highly rated, at least on my tier list. And that is because they take advantage of the vitality investment more so than any other hero. And they can actually become very, very tanky very quickly. Abrams still has the same weaknesses that he did before, and that's why he's not S plus tier. You know, his ultimate is still kind of meh. His charges is still quite a long cooldown until he has it maxed out. But, you know, when he gets the vitality investment and the spirit investment, his siphon life can do a ton of damage. And then he can just buy a couple weapon items and also do significant shotgun damage. He's really tanky, hard to kill, has lockdown with his ultimate and charge. And overall, I think that he's a strong pick in virtually any composition. Now, one of the biggest winners of the patch is probably Wraith. Wraith, at first, I underestimated her, but I think that the moment that she gets her build going, she's really hard to deal with. And we're seeing Wraith being picked in pro play like fairly consistently. And the reason for that is that it's difficult to itemize against Wraith, because Wraith does very hybrid damage. Similarly to Infernus. Infernus does both gun and spirit damage. Wraith does both gun and spirit damage. You can't just buy bullet resilience. You can't buy metal skin because it doesn't really do much against Wraith. Even plated armor against Wraith is not really that good because full auto just completely ignores plated armor as far as I'm aware. It probably doesn't ignore the deflect, but it doesn't count as an on hit. And so plated armor is not that great against Wraith. So that leaves you with options like Disarming Hex or, you know, Warp Stone in order to dodge her counter spell for her ult. But once she gets to the 20-25 minute mark and she's full build, her damage output is, I would say, almost unrivaled. I don't really think there's a lot of heroes that can do more damage than Wraith in the current state of the game. At least sustained damage. She can output so much of it. And she was like really bad before at a high level of play, but now I think even a high level of play, she can be pretty good. Now, Sinclair also gained a lot from this patch. He has 2 teleports now. He once again benefits a lot from the spirit investment spike because, you know, the bolt build now has like an insane power spike where you have max bolt, you've got the 4.8k in spirit investment with rapid recharge and improved spirit, and then some green items, right? You might go Veilwalker, enchanters, and you basically just stack spirit and you have this insane spike. Well, you'll have over 100 spirit at like 7 or 8 minutes with max bolt, and then you'll just be one-shotting people. And that's a really, really, really strong point for Sinclair. And having 2 TPs just makes him so much harder to fight. Like, he can teleport back and forth between his assistant, which makes his assistant a lot more viable in fights rather than just as an escape tool. And so I think he's definitely one of the biggest winners as well. Warden went from not really being seen that much to being seen a lot more. The Warden gun buffs at first were a little too much, and so they were kind of rolled back very quickly. And I think Warden right now is sitting pretty comfortably at whether it's A or S tier. I have him in S tier currently. I could see the argument for A tier, but he just gets so tanky and he still outputs a very, very significant amount of damage. You know, not as much as like Wraith does, but he can do so with like 4 or 5k HP once you get to late game. That's the difference between him and Wraith, is that Wraith is much harder to kill quickly, whereas Warden is very, very hard to kill quickly and still outputs a respectable amount of damage. On top of that, he has a pretty good lane with a decent amount of regen as well as Flask, which is a very spammable ability. And so I would highly recommend that you guys give Warden a try if you haven't already this patch. The last hero I want to talk about is Drifter. Now, Drifter is kind of like was one of the worst heroes in the game previously. And with the gun changes as well as the slight buffs to Drifter, he seems to have gone up quite a bit in popularity as well as success. A lot of Drifters do a lot of damage these days, and the hero's outputting like very, very stellar damage, has a pretty good laning stage, has great team fight usage with his ultimate. Passive is still kind of meh, it kind of depends on the situation, and the stacks aren't really what's carrying Drifter, but the rest of his kit kit seems very solid with his current numbers. So he seemed to be having mostly a numbers issue. Maybe they should look at, you know, changing his passive a little bit. But right now, I would say he's a very, very solid hero. So if you're a Drifter main, it's definitely a good patch for you. Now, I don't want this video to be too long. If you want any information on what I think of any of the other heroes in the patch, just really go to the tier list website. You can click on a hero. You can get my recommended builds. You can see a little bit what I wrote about them. It's not, you know, super exhaustive, but it can help you as a guide, right? And just remember that you shouldn't like be hey, this tier list is the holy grail and I should listen to everything it says. Tier lists are highly subjective. Any content creator that makes a tier list is putting their opinion in there, myself included, and opinions are heavily shaped by what you are surrounded by. So for example, if in my region, I don't know, I just never play against a good Viper player, for example, that might lead me to put Viper in B tier, even though maybe Viper is not B tier. But it's very hard to make a tier list based on hypotheticals. You have to make a tier list based on, you know, lived experience, and that's what my tier list is. But I think it's a great guide if you want to just know, hey, what's kind of the most broken heroes of the patch. I think most people would agree about the heroes in S and S plus tier that are really, really, really strong. And, you know, your experience may vary at your rank, because it's a high rank tier list, but I highly encourage you to, you know, go out and make your own conclusions. With that being said, check out the tier list and the builds in the description below. And I thank you so much for the support. I hope you have a wonderful day.